I'll never forget growing up listening to my mom and dad say, "Quit, if you don't have anything nice to say to anybody, don't say it at all."
Fuck that for a fucking joke. If that was the case, we wouldn't be here in the first place and everything would all be hunky fucking dory. Welcome to episode 2 of The Hill Verdict. I'm your host once again, Savage Sean Ravage. On the first episode of The Hill Verdict, which is also available for you to see on my YouTube channel, we looked into the pages known as Perth Have or Whinge, and how some of the posts on those pages can be utterly ridiculous and sometimes pointless, and, kind of shaming the people that actually put them up as well. And at the advice of a friend of mine, what better way to get the word out than to share this video on the pages where all this stuff's actually happened to begin with. So I took it upon myself to share it to Perth Have a Whinge, 18 plus unrestricted, and 18 plus unrestricted antics. And, I got some good responses, I got some bad responses. And I outlined when I put the post up in those pages that all the comments that were directed my way would be addressed in the next episode. And well, here we are. So without further ado, I present to you the Ravage reaction for episode 1 of The Hill Verdict. So just before we get into these comments and all the responses I actually have for them, just a little disclaimer that people's first and last names for these comments will be addressed in full. If you noticed in the last episode of The Hill Verdict, I actually had the last names and the profile pics blurred out in the interest of fairness and privacy. In this case, I'm responding to each individual person, so I will be keeping the profile pics off screen, however your first and last names will be on there. I actually honestly don't see the point of me blurring out your last name, because people who want to see these comments are going to be in the Perth Have a Whinge groups when this video gets shared into there as well, and they're going to be able to go to the original post and find the comments said by these people anyway. So as Heath Franklin's chopper would say, let's bloody rip into it then! The following responses I'm about to bring to your attention now were as a result of me sharing my video on the Perth Have a Whinge 18 plus unrestricted page. The first response I got was from the admin on the page known as Joe Black. He said, "This is the best whinge so far of 2018. I'll allow it. Much appreciated, Joe. Glad you're willing to leave my show up for people to watch. Just a couple of things I don't agree with. We have done more good than what you have mentioned. We have had members from here locate stolen cars, found lost people. The National Aussie Safe Facebook group was spurred from an ex-admin of this group. You can think of this group in some sort of way therapeutic. Get things off your chest here. Therapeutic, are you fucking mental? From what I can see, there wasn't really much therapeutic about the shit that I put up in the last episode. I mean, those people would put posts up that would have driven any normal person insane had I not put a comedic twist and taken the piss out of them in the first place. You see, Joe, I'm not denying that some great things have been done on this page, and you've been there to support your fellow man and been able to help each other in a crisis situation, but when I see a post like that fuckwit Francis who put up a comparison between veganism and abortion, that guy, if anything, needs fucking therapy himself, never mind being therapeutic to begin with. The second response I received in the Perth Have a Whinge 18 plus unrestricted page was from a man named Adam Hasty. He said, "You couldn't advertise the page any better than that. It's like watching PHAW live weekly review. The next step in PHAW evolution. Well made, Sean. Well presented. Wasn't sure if you were going to get past the first 4 words for a bit, but ended being entertaining, easy to watch." Well, thanks, Adam. I see what I did there. I appreciate the sentiment, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the show. It was a bit tricky being my first video and all, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And while I'm glad you did enjoy the show, helping the evolution of PHAW or Perth Have a Whinge, I mean, there's not much I could further do to help involve people into more of a fuckwit than they were on the page when I pointed them out. So, not saying you all are, just the people I pointed out. They can't really evolve, there's no hope for them, I'm sorry. And now we head into the territory known as Butthurt RS, better known as the original incarnation of Perth Have a Whinge. Some of the comments that I got weren't too bad, but there were some real bad ones, that stood out to me, and I'll get to those at the end. But the first comment that I came across was from a woman named Tanya Slade. She said, "I think it's pretty good. Got a bit nervous I got those 80s music songs wrong. Phew, good shit. No worries, Tanya. And just to clear your mind of any doubt, Tanya, I've done the research for you. ABBA Fernando was released in 1980, and Uptown Girl by Billy Joel was released in 1983. So, 10 points for you, you're all sweet with us." And next up on the original incarnation of Perth Have a Whinge, we have a comment left by Di Marie McArdle. She says, "I'm a shit cunt of the highest order if I go by what you're saying. I didn't mind that, but the intro nearly had me moving on before you finally got into it. Well, Di, I'm not apologising for the intro, which is a bit of a blooper reel, a bit of fun. If you had a fucking sense of humour, you would probably understand it. But I'm glad to see that you've admitted to being a shit cunt of the highest order. They say the first step to recovery is actually admittance, and I'm glad to see that you're on the step to making yourself a better person. Unfortunately for you, there isn't a 12-step recovery program for being a shit cunt, so it looks like you'll be stuck like that for the rest of your life, and there's not much anyone can fucking do about it, so... Up next, we have a comment by Cassie Marson, who decided to start a bit of a turf war by claiming originality for the group, saying that PHAW 18 Plus is a copycat of this group, no affiliation to the original, and instead of spelling out PHAW, just say 4, pronounced kinda like 4, might make things easier. Copycat, like, what are you, fucking 6? Use terms like ripped off and plagiarized, so don't use terms like fucking copycat, and you're telling me to pronounce it like 4. I mean, the fact that you just used the term copycat just proves that you have an inferior intellect to most people in the general population. So, just because you can only count to 4, doesn't mean I have to limit myself to counting to 4 and pronounce it that way. I'll pronounce it however the fuck I want to. And, you know, if it's 4 letters, PHAW, and the way that you spell it isn't an actual word, I'm not going to call it 4, am I? Just for the record, they've actually written a song. A band called Psycho Stick has actually written a song regarding people like you. And it goes a little something like this.
1, I can count to 1, 2, I can count to 2, 3, I can count to 3, 4, I can't count no more. 1, what comes after 1, 2, what comes after 2, 3, what comes after 3, 4. I can only count to 4, I can only count to 4, I can only count to 4.
So after addressing these first handful of comments, we finally get to the big dog, the head honcho of Perth Have Whinge's original incarnation, being Paulie Marlowe. He said, "I'm admin. No shit, Sherlock, you got the giant fuck off star next to your name. Good to see. Sean, it's a group. The other groups with PHAW in them are all ran by the same admins, and are all promoted in all the original PHAW groups. Example, PHAW Cute and Floofy isn't a group to whinge about pets. It's a group to love and adore animals with admins from PHAW. All the other Perth Have Whinge groups are clones. Nothing to do with us. Just copied us because our group is successful. Hope that clears things up." Paulie, whichever way you want to look at it, page, group, whatever, you might have created a really good marketing network here, but because it doesn't really live up to what it's supposed to be, you know, that comment in itself just proves one thing, that you, sir, are indeed a... And now the reason I say that is nothing against you personally, just, you know, you're marketing it as Perth Have a Whinge, but yet no one's allowed to have a whinge or be negative or how to air their grievances, you know? At least in the previous comments that I mentioned before from Joe Black and Adam Hasty, at least people are allowed to go on their pages and actually air their grievances or have a whinge about something, which is what the page says it is. I mean, your page is based on being Perth Have a Whinge, yet no one's allowed to whinge. So why the fuck do you call it Perth Have a Whinge? It's just stupid. No word of a lie. I mean, you've done well with your marketing, but if I could give you some sort of marketing advice, you should change the name from Perth Have a Whinge to Go Have a Yarn. And trust me, it'll be a great idea, because straight away, with the acronym, when you add the letters together, straight away everyone's going to be like...
Ha! Gay!
So just before we address the final comment that was left in response to my Perth Have a Whinge episode of The Hill Verdict, another comment had come to my attention, left by one Rachel Lewis. It was a link to a YouTube channel that belongs to a man named Matthew Poole, who likes to review movies and give his take on the blockbusters that are coming out and all the big name movies that have been released. I wasn't sure why this was actually left as a comment. I thought maybe, you know, it was take a look at this guy, maybe it's something you could change. But I looked at this video, and all he explained was that he's going on a hiatus because his sound was a bit off. So, I don't know, Rachel, was that a dig at me because you thought my sound was a bit off in the last video? Now, if my sound was a bit off, I'm willing to cooperate and wanting to work with the fans out there that do want to make sure that this video is of somewhat good quality. So, why don't we try a little exercise here? First step you're going to need to do is make sure you're in a nice quiet room, and, you know, or even if you're sitting on the toilet watching this in your lunch break, or, you know, killing time so you don't have to go back to fucking work, whatever it is. Just make sure you're in a quiet environment with minimal background noise, that no one's disturbing you, or, you know, if you're watching this with friends, tell them to shut the fuck up. Also, just make sure that your volume's turned up, you're in a peaceful environment, and we're just going to do a sound check. Ready? Right, it's all set. Ready? Yeah, good. Yep.
Is that fucking loud enough for you, you critical picky bitch?
Good. I'm glad we came to that arrangement. And now we get to the final comment that I need to address in response to my Perth Have a Whinge video, and was left by a guy named Michael Gabord. Now, I need to give you all a warning. If there was any example that best describes oxymoron, it's this fucking post. And not only does it come across like an oxymoron, I think a fucking moron wrote it to begin with. So let's get into it, shall we? He wrote, "Oh, have a whinge, mate. But that's some mighty fine advertising. The original PHAW, the one you're posting on, was a successful group. Yes, you say page, but it's not. That many wanted to copy, as they didn't like the way the page was run." Okay, make your fucking mind up. Is it a page or is it a fucking group? Confusing the fuck out of the whole situation. You don't fucking need to. Let's continue. "The acronym pages were all birthed from this group. See, right fucking there. Is it a page or is it a fucking group? What are you, fucking dumb shit or what? So others can talk about those topics without having to actually whinge about it." Okay, so you're telling me that this page or group or whatever you want to call it was created without people needing to whinge, but you just called it a whinge group anyway. Back to my original point with Paulie, don't call it a whinge page if it's not a fucking whinge page. Perth Have a Whinge isn't Perth-based either. Oh, really? Well, at least in the other Perth Have a Whinge pages, just so you're aware, they try to keep it strictly to WA because you don't advertise it as fucking Perth and let some fucking joker from Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney or Gold Coast fucking jump in. That's just ridiculous. "Since the early days, it hasn't been restricted to Perth, but it is mainly Perth though." Okay, so you didn't restrict it to Perth. You're saying it's not restricted to Perth, but now all of a sudden it's restricted to Perth. Okay. You could see where this is going, people. "I didn't get through the whole episode as I got bored when you started to compare us to the other groups." Again, page or groups. I had to keep repeating myself. "We here have raised a shit ton of money for telethon, and other members via specifically made GoFundMe pages, the most memorable one being a mother reaching out and PHAW coming to the party to buy her son a scooter. Shitposts exist. That's what makes the group fun. Legit whinges exist. As above, it makes the group fun." Well, you fucking clown, if it makes the page fun, or the group fun, or whatever fucking title you want to give this thing, why is there such a ban on what people can say? Don't call yourself Perth Have a Whinge if people can't fucking say what they want. If they can't whinge and be honest and say what they feel, don't call yourself a Have a Whinge page. Don't incorrectly market the page as Perth Have a Whinge if it's not what it's meant to be. It ain't all bad. And I think the fact that you're whinging about a whinge page is kind of ironic and makes it seem like you're a bit butthurt at either how the group is run or the content provided. No one forces you to be here. Okay, look, I'm not saying anyone's forcing me to be there. The reason I got into these pages, I was already part of Perth Have a Whinge years and years ago, but I joined the other pages to make a compare and contrast. And again, the evidence is there. You guys are saying that you're not a whinge page, but then you're telling me to let the whinges and the shit posts exist. You're either a whinge page or you're not a whinge page. Make your mind up. You said you didn't watch the whole thing through. Well, and you sit there, you want to list all your accolades. You would have, if you actually sat there and took the time to watch the episode for everything that it was worth, rather than cast a judgment on the fact that you only watched fucking the first 3 minutes of the episode, you actually missed the fact that there's an award for this type of thing. And you, my friend Michael, just became the newest nominee for it.
Shut the fuck up. You're a stupid cunt. Suck my dick.
Well, that wraps it up for another episode of The Hill Verdict. I'm probably going to be the most hated man in all these fucking Perth Have a Whinge pages, but you all just contradicted yourself and go get fucked, so peace out.